Welcome back for part 2 of our tank series, where we're going to actually get inside the tank and find the repairs. And don't worry, Alex Jr. and Alex 3 are still here to carry the conversation.
Scott, we're back with part 2 of our tank talk with Alex Jr. and Alex the Third. So I hope our listeners enjoy it. What do you think? It's been going good so far.
Yeah, I've been enjoying this one too. Learning a lot. It's nice to be on the listening end of these things. So why don't we jump in and see where we left off?
Here we go. So once we're inside, I think some of the main ones that obviously aside from visual would be maybe some floor scanning and stuff like that. Do you guys have anything special or anything different technology wise that you guys use for floor scanning at Ranger, or is it industry kind of just the industry kind of basic tools?
Well, MFL floor scanning is nothing new, of course. I utilized the first Silver Wing MFL floor scanners when they came out in California in 1993. I worked for a company there. We bought 6 of them. They were just basic units, just with a magnetic head, some Hall effect sensors on them, and a display. They worked very well. Having said that, between 1993 and really 2003, those very simple units were used exclusively and did a lot of tank floor scans. I did a tremendous amount. Having said that, the MFL floor scanner developed by some companies, they took the direction of course, of floor mapping and creating a software in the unit itself that could locate and volumetrically size indications and that type of thing. I've used every scanner on the market. We have our favorites for specific applications. Small tanks, you want to be quick and efficient in there. Larger tanks, of course, the customer is going to ask you for more comprehensive drawings, locations, etc. So that's where that comes in. The development of it has been in the magnets and in the software itself. Today, having said that, there's 2 major MFL manufacturers, and the majority of the companies use their equipment. There are a few large independent inspection companies that have developed their own MFL floor scanners. They've incorporated some other aspects in it too, but the one bottom line that I'll state right now is that the MFL that we do is proved up with ultrasonics, and so that's been my philosophy from day one, from going back a long time, that must accompany MFL ultrasonics. There's some others out there that don't agree with that or don't say that, but I can tell you that based on my thousands of tank inspections I've done in my career with MFL and UT, it must go hand in hand.
What kind of UT do you back that up with, Alex? Is it just manual in a few spots, or do you run like a crawler through it too?
We've got both. Depending on what we've got there, we'll do some manual prove up, some scrubs of some areas. But however, in some other cases there, we'll do a more advanced, even a phased array scan with a crawler in the critical zone to get as much of that area as much as we can as well, including the weld area. So, we mentioned ultrasonics a few times here. Ultrasonics is advanced, as you boys know, into phased array now, and so a much more advanced technique that we're applying in many areas. The critical weld, the the critical zone around there on the plate as well, and that type of thing.
Is that something that's difficult to interpret, that critical weld, like specifically when it's fillet welds without the penetration? Like, do you have a hard time seeing what's going on there, or what is your kind of experience with those?
Yes, it can be misinterpreted there.
Right.
You have to know what you're looking at there, and you have to have the right setup. With the advancement of some of the software on the phased array units, with the advancement of that software, it's cleaned that up a little bit. Those discrepancies, where you're able to plot it, much faster and essentially in real time.
Yeah, Sorry, go ahead.
Having said that too, of course, you run into many different situations there on that plate where you've got, perhaps you've got some rough plate or you've got some topside corrosion that you're trying to put a probe down on and that. So, yeah, it's not as easy or simple as it sounds in all cases. Sure, when you have nice clean plate, everything looks good, but when you boys know, when you start to get into the real world there, you can have some anomalies that you need to be to pay attention to.
And how about the floor scanners? How sensitive are they to surface prep? Like, can you go through pretty scaled, dirty tank floor, or does it want to be quite clean for that, or is that more of a preference? Like, what is your experience there?
It's kind of a two-part answer. Those scanners aren't particularly cheap, so no inspector in his right mind wants to drag that thing through any oil or anything like that. And then also too, just damaging the sensor bar and the magnets and the wheels, all those components. It's not cheap to fix those things. So you don't want to have any dirt or grime or anything like that left over. That kind of material left over, it can give you some false signals. It can dampen the signal. But those units are powerful enough to scan through most epoxy liners and in fiberglass as well. And depending on the thickness of the plate and that kind of thing, some of the more advanced units now can be adjusted for all ranges of thicknesses and different liners. And some of them even have built-in features to include a uniform liner thickness, and it kind of accounts that into the signal. So, for a couple different reasons there, you want to have that tank as clean as possible so you don't have false signals or any lift off or anything like that. But mainly for protecting your equipment in that case. But those scanners are powerful. They're able to scan through some of that either way.
And regarding cleanliness of that tank, we tell our customers, of course, no residual product of any kind, no pooling of water or product in there. If there's a heavy, thick adhered scale, we'll talk about doing maybe a blast in there of some kind. If there's a coating in there that's extensively failed as well, at that point, the owner may decide to just blast that floor and then do the scan on it after the fact, which of course is welcome to us. The cleaner the floor, the better the presentation. Sure, the more integral the scan and the inspection.
No, 100%. And I'm sure you guys have had some interesting conversations about cleanliness, just as we do about vessels being cleaned, right? But I can only imagine like an asphaltene tank or something like that with just thick residual oil and just goopy crap that's at the bottom of the barrel. It's tough to clean out and it takes weeks sometimes.
Yeah, I can think of for myself being on a couple of floor repair jobs where we had to cut a big hole in the side of the tank and the guy was in there for days or weeks with the Bobcat cleaning it out for us. Like, that was almost the longest duration of the job. I'm sure you guys have run into similar things or even worse.
We've seen lots of that. Everything that you're describing is right on the money with some of those heavier products. And there's a close contact of ours. We know that they've been working on one particular tank now for several years because they ended up having upwards of 30 feet of solids in the tank. So, like you said, you cut that door out and you drive the Bobcat in, and scraping out the solids is just the start of it. Right. You can get as much out as you can with the front end of that thing, but once you get down to the floor, it's getting that last little bit off that's really difficult, because sandblasting doesn't always work with that because it's gummy and it absorbs the impact, and high pressure washing is kind of the same story. Sometimes it's a combination of heat and chemical and that kind of thing, and weeks, months, in some cases years, depending on how bad things are and how much is in there. So like you said, you're right on the money with the description there for sure.
Those the boys with the high pressure wands and the scrubbers, though, they definitely earn their dollar. Like, that
no
is grueling, unthankful work.
Totally, guys. Tank cleaning is totally grueling and in the heat and all of it, and that's why. That's why companies have so aggressively tried to adopt robotic cleaning methods in tanks. And, there's a number of companies right now who utilize that technology. It's not bulletproof yet at this point, and it takes considerable time and water and resources, etc. But it's eliminating that man going in. And, that's part of the drone, that's part of the robotics services and all that. It's eliminating that, and increasing safety for the manpower.
How do those robotic cleaners actually, are they just robotic and like remote controlled, or are they automated? Like, I'm thinking, like, how would they react to some of like the floating roof piers and stuff like that are in there?
There's a couple of different units. There's some that are manually operated, so guys are actually driving what really looks like a giant remote controlled car, and it's got the water jet on it and that kind of thing. They run on a track system of some kind. Oh, yeah. There's some others that they'll have just kind of a gyro system, and you literally just put a big spinning ball in the tank, and it whips around and it sprays a high pressure water out. And so there's a couple of different things, but I think Alex is more specifically talking about those manual units that go in there, and guys are driving them around, blasting away all the leftovers in the tank and getting it cleaned up that way.
Yeah, it's like a 3D head, like we're kind of familiar with in the towers and that.
Yeah.
Does a good job. Makes a big mess of things too, but does a good job cleaning.
Damn, yeah. Kills all the internals usually. Do you guys do you have any methods of, like, can you put some sort of robotic piece of equipment in there and inspect tanks while they have product in them? And like, what's the limit to that? Like, does it need to be a clear product? Can you put something in, maybe not like a heavy oil service or anything like that, but something similar, like maybe fuel? Is that possible?
So this is a really good question, and this is a topic of much discussion right now. This is a question we get from pretty much everybody across the board, and again, it's one of those things that lots of groups are looking at, and the success of those robotics it varies, and for some of the reasons you've already mentioned, product is the most important one there. You can imagine, trying to inspect a water tank, for example, with a robotic crawler, and that's one thing, but imagine trying to do that now on a hot bitumen tank. Yeah. It's just not going to happen, right? And that's a product of the type of surface you're trying to scan on, and the limitations of moving around in a product like that, and visibility and things. And you have to consider something as well, that's a pretty dangerous process, because as it stands right now, there's very few, if any, units that we're aware of that are fully intrinsically safe. So you're running something down into product that may not be intrinsically safe, and that's a big problem there. But some of the limitations of a unit like that, and I think when these groups are trying to push this type of inspection, they've got to be honest about the situation too. This is the type of tool we talk about as being complementary to a good previous inspections, where you have information about a tank floor already, and some of the hot spots for corrosion or specific areas that are of interest or that you want to inspect in the future. And so what you're able to do is go back in there with a crawler of some kind and retest those areas. But as far as replacing a conventional internal inspection performed by humans, if we felt that was necessarily the way to go, we'd probably be doing that ourselves every single day already, and staying nice and clean, having fresh blue cubbies all over the place, staying in the trailer, of course. But, like I said, it's a complementary thing, and there's varied reports of success and that kind of thing. One of the main limitations that we see with that type of technology, and yeah, I mean, obviously it saves you from having to clean a tank, but the coverage you're getting, there's a lot of demos and a lot of, I guess, horror stories, I suppose you may want to call it, of these crawlers going in and getting 1% of the floor or something like that. And that just doesn't cut it as far as we're concerned. We've seen some really interesting cases, and I always bring this one up anytime I talk to anybody when we're discussing robotic crawlers. And we scanned a large 300-foot diameter storage tank. The floor was basically in pristine condition except for one small spot that when we ended up doing a cutout was almost a hole through the floor. And what we found laying underneath that cutout plate was an old welding rod, and the tank floor was sacrificing itself for the rod. The rod was basically in brand new condition. So that being said, you can imagine the risk you run of just taking a few spot readings, or we call them doinks. I'm sure you guys have heard that term before.
Yeah, technical term.
Yeah, the technical term, exactly. So, again, like I got to come back to the point. It's a complementary inspection technique, but it certainly at this point in time shouldn't be replacing conventional methods. And we've talked early on in this discussion about some of the reasons why groups are looking at in-service inspections and that kind of thing and deferrals. And this is one of those tools that comes up every time. And, whether it's pandemic-related concerns or it's cost concerns and that kind of thing, companies look to turn to these types of technologies. And, I said already, I think it's important that everyone is honest about the capabilities and limitations of different techniques and what you're able to achieve. And we certainly are of the mindset that at this point, we're not replacing what a good floor scan can do and a good operator can do in there, and the coverage, achieving near 100% in a lot of cases. There's a lot of benefits to getting in there, getting cleaned out, and doing it the right way for sure.
Yeah, just listening to you talk, I know that a lot of people do ask that question, but we just came off the heels of talking about how you've seen 30 feet of settlement inside a tank. And then I asked about dropping a robot in to go look at the bottom of it. You'd basically just be throwing it on a beach in some situations, right?
Well, and that's exactly right. I mean, you're talking about certain products, and it's just not even a question in some cases. Some of the cleaner fuels, you may have some success. Again, the question becomes at the end of the day, if you are successful in getting your readings and some of your visual and that kind of thing with onboard lighting, and you find something of significant, damage in the tank or corrosion or that kind of thing, how are you going to manage that going forward now? I mean, you've sometimes you spend a little bit of money up front and you get lucky, but in those cases, you might end up running into a situation where now you've spent the money on that and you're still going into your tank. And so, it's a cool idea. The technology is on its way. There's, like anything new that comes on the scene, there's a lot of work and research and development that has to go into it to get it to a point where everybody is comfortable using it. And it'll be there one day, but, like I said, you'd probably be hard pressed to find a unit like that that's going to replace what some of the more skilled inspectors are already doing when they get inside.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's not like you can do your floor repair while it's in service anyways. So if you do find if you do find something, now you've got that situation where you got to bring it out of service to do the repair anyways. So it's kind of a balancing act, I suppose.
No, for sure. So kind of maybe getting back on track here about internal inspections.
I'm still thinking about that welding rod stub story. Wow. That was interesting. I know for like doing tanks in the field, that's always a critical point. If a smaller tank, if you're going to flip the floor or something like that, when you're fabricating, is always making sure there's nothing there. And it's kind of story of the anode and the cathode switching roles there. So that's quite an interesting story and good point to how critical that is.
Did that tank have cathodic protection, and would that have possibly helped, or?
That tank did not have cathodic protection. It may have helped in that case. Kind of hard to say. I mean, we see the varying effectivity of that cathodic protection as well, and that is based on a lot of factors. We talked about moisture levels and different types of foundations and that kind of thing as well. The gravel versus sand or oiled sands or things like that. So there's a whole range of factors that'll affect that. In this particular case, no, there was no cathodic, and so it was a really interesting find. Like I said, 300-foot diameter tank, and the underside was in pristine condition except for one underside indication. And you can imagine that's a pretty massive space when you're talking about that. And so, if you were to run from one end to the other, it's going to take you a full minute to get across. At least it's a big tank, and I think we were there on that tank. We had 10 guys. We were there for about 3 straight weeks, and that's a hell of a lot of work. And so to find that one indication and prove it up, and that's a pretty significant find. It turned out it was on a half-inch thick annular plate as well. So, a pretty critical piece of the tank in that case, right? That annular plate is thicker there for a reason, and that's to support the weight of that shell plate. And so any material loss that's occurring in that particular area is a significant find. And I don't want to say we're lucky, but the client certainly was lucky that somebody found that, because that could have been a big issue.
Yeah, it really goes to show how critical and how important that inspection is, especially with the floor. That if that went unnoticed for too long, you would have had a real disaster on your hands.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, that's pretty neat. That is actually really cool. So how often do you guys do offer rope access service, I guess, for your tank inspections as well? And do you implement it often, or is it more of a scaffold thing? I guess it would obviously depend on the construction of the tank, and whether it had a fixed roof or a floating roof, or even if you had a floating roof that was sitting down on the piers, would you just jump on top of the roof and do visual, or would you guys come down from the top as well with rope access to inspect the upper portion of it?
Yeah, that's you've basically covered it all there. I don't know how much I can add to that.
Okay.
But yeah, you sound like you've got all the techniques there. So yeah, so certainly rope access is something that we've done some work with in the past. For fixed roof inspections and that kind of thing. When you have a chance to work on a floating roof, that floating roof comes and it lands in its maintenance position, which is typically 7 or 8 feet. So you'll have access hatches, and you can just put a ladder under there and crawl up on top. So you don't necessarily need the rope access for that. One thing that you had brought up already a couple of times, and maybe it's the right time to kind of segue into that, but drone inspections are all the rage nowadays, and not to take anything away from the efforts of those guys that are performing rope access, because that's still, again, it's kind of the question of a crawler, and what if you find something, you got to go and still get hands on it and work on it. The drones are really cool because what they do is they prevent some of that initial cost and safety aspect of things in terms of having guys hanging from a roof. And it's always an interesting discussion, because you're doing the rope access to inspect those hard to reach areas, but you're hanging from something that you're inspecting. So it's kind of a chicken or egg problem in that regard a little bit. And you can talk about cutting a door sheet and bringing a man lift in and scaffold and all that. And there's quite a bit that goes into that. There's a lot of effort, a lot of time. Different crafts are getting involved and that kind of thing. And so the onset of drones here, as far as the storage tank world goes, is really neat, and it's great for safety and cost efficiencies, because it allows us to go in and fly a drone for a couple hours and inspect those hard to reach areas, and then really highlight the spots that need to get checked. And so a good combination of both of those inspection methods is really the best way to go. And we've got a cool project upcoming where we're going to be doing a little bit of that as well. But drones are certainly, again, like I said, with 3D scanning, it's kind of the way of the future. It's one of those things where everybody's got to get involved, because it's quickly becoming the best method of getting things done effectively.
Check out our website for some great videos, internal drone videos that from some of our flight missions already. Some of the quality with the drone, with that confined space drone, is exceptional. And it's twofold. It's the quality of the video that you're taking, and it's the skill of the pilot as well. We're fortunate. Greg Mann, our drone general manager, is an exceptional pilot, and he takes that drone up into areas, and you're looking at piping and other pieces up there of the Raptor system, and that you might not even get with the scaffold or with rope access. You do a very good general comprehensive scan, like a flight up top, and that gives you a tremendous amount of information. We're utilizing it almost as a screening tool initially in some cases for even safety aspects of it. For if there's some damaged rafters up there and cleaning's about to begin, or your inspection's about to begin, look up in a tank. You always want to make sure that you're safe from anything hanging or potentially falling.
Yeah, for sure. And
sorry.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, that's a good point, and I liked how you put it as the drone as a screening tool. And I think Alex 3 mentioned it, the word efficiency. That's the way I see them too. Like especially you're going into a tank or a vessel or whatever it is that's you're going to need to scaffold to get at anything. It's a nice tool to go in there, do a really good overview scan, look at your areas of interest, find the areas that, okay, we definitely need to scaffold up to here versus scaffolding up the entire thing. So it's, a very good screener tool. I like that.
Yeah, that's exactly, one of our main applications for it. We have a customer who uses it exclusively before they go into any type of tower or anything like that. They want to run the drone through. They want to have a quick look and evaluate from there and use it as a screening tool from there.
Yeah, and even to the safety aspect, like a good idea to run a drone through there just to see what's going on before you stick a person in. You never know what you might find.
Absolutely. In one particular incident that we had, they were concerned that they had some heavy deposits that were just hanging up on top. And indeed they did. Again, check out one of the videos on our website, and you'll see the heavy deposits that they had hanging up top that, they were very happy to identify before anybody crawled in.
Oh yeah, no doubt. You wouldn't want to feel that on your back.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
And you guys are running the Elios platform for inspections, or do you guys have something different?
No, we are running the Elios platforms. We had one of the first Elios drones, the E1, in the country here. Greg had. We've got their second generation now, the E2, that we're utilizing as well too. So, very, very good drone. We also, for our external work, we're using the DJI drones, the Matrice 300s and nice. 600s and that, and those are all. The equipment has become so functional that it's become excellent tools in our industry for sure.
Yeah, they're neat, first of all, but they can be used to accomplish so many things and complement the visual inspections and the NDE testing that I foresee them now quickly becoming a part of the toolbox for sure.
Yeah, and no, absolutely. And you boys have heard before, I know from others, regarding advances with ultrasonic drones and that type of thing. We hope to have our ultrasonic drone here in the next month. We've got some trials on the go as well. And what that ultrasonic drone does for you, again, it provides you an opportunity to maybe get, a couple I'll use the technical term doinks again, in some real inaccessible places at heights. So it's, you're not going to go up there and you're not going to do an extensive scrub of a corroded area, but at the very least, you may identify an area that needs, considerable more attention.
And how does that technology work? Does it, I'm more specifically wondering about the coupling. Does it use like a semi-solid type of thing, or does it have like some sort of water tank on it? Like how?
Yeah, it has, yes, two different kind of setups these days with the UT drones. One has a small reservoir and a small pump on board. And another approach is that the drone has a water line that originates at a pump at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
So you're just lifting up a light water line, pumps at the bottom, and that's how you're delivering couplant to your areas, to your probe.
Are those
similar to what you would do with an automated ultrasonic system?
Right.
Are those from the same manufacturer, and they're just kind of testing out different couplant delivery methods?
Different manufacturers. There's about 10 different groups right now working on UT drones. A couple in the UK, 4 that I know of in the US, two in Canada here that people are talking about. So. It's ongoing here at a number of places right now.
Yeah, it's something I've heard a lot about, but I can't say I've seen it in action or really talked to anybody that's actually used it or had success with it. I think it's the idea stage and the application's not quite there yet, but it sounds like you guys have one coming up right away, so that's exciting.
Yeah, very exciting, and we've got a number of our customers who, are chomping at the bit for applications for it. So that's, it's exciting. It's a fun toy.
Oh yeah.
It's what it's advanced to, gents. It sure is. Hey, I'm going to do a selfish plug here right this second.
Absolutely.
Before I forget, gentlemen, we hold a conference by the name of Think Tanks. And I implemented this conference 20 plus years ago, an above ground storage tank conference. And it was touted probably the best above ground storage tank conference in North America in the early, when I was doing it through the 2000s and into there. What it was is I brought together all the top experts in the above ground storage industry to speak. I had a 3-day conference here in Calgary held every year. I took the whole gang. We had people from everybody coming, from all the companies, Enbridge, you name it. They came. We took them to a hockey game. We had a heck of a good time in the evenings, and it was a tremendous learning experience for everybody. We're doing it again. We have our virtual think tank. It's back. It's coming June 8, 9, 10 of this year. It's engineering heavy, and by that I mean we've got a number of case studies. We have a number of top experts in North America speaking, including a gentleman from our own engineering group that we're associated with, and that's PEMI Consulting. And Phil Myers, the owner, director of PEMI Consulting out of the United States. Phil has worked on the API committees for the last many years. I've known him for 30, so he's been on that committee for 30 plus. And long story short, the guy is a tremendous knowledge bank regarding codes. He's written many of the codes. He's on the committees for many of the codes. So where I'm getting at, that's the level of conference that we're bringing again this in June. And gentlemen, hope you will attend and participate virtually, and perhaps there's something in there that you don't already know.
Oh yeah, that's exciting. Actually, I'll look forward to checking that out. Is this something you've been doing all along, Alex? You say you're bringing it back. Did it get halted last year because of the kind of the global situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
We wanted to do it last year, but because of COVID and that, it
Right.
put a kibosh on all the trade shows
Right.
that were going on through North America, So that was one of the reasons. We hadn't done it for a couple of years up to then.
Okay.
One of the reasons is that because, you always want good material, you want new, fresh material at when you're presenting or that you're putting on seminars or conferences. And so we had done quite a few of the conferences. We had some tremendous sessions on it. We took a hiatus here a little bit, but now we're back. We've got, as I said, a number of our top above ground storage tank experts in North America and on the planet. And we're very happy to be hosting everybody with that.
And how can people get information or get tickets to that? Is that through your website?
Yeah, it's just a quick registration on our website, just a quick click and some information on yourself. And then you'll receive a registration confirmation and the codes for the sessions during that period.
Excellent. And it's like a pick your presentation type of thing? Is that what you got going on?
Correct.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, correct. It's a 3-day. Over the 3 days, I believe we've got 4 sessions per day, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and it's a pick your session, of course.
Right.
Conference. So we're real excited about that. And again, that's a tremendous opportunity for anybody in the above ground storage tank world industry to listen in and to listen and participate with the best in the business.
No, it sounds like fun. I've actually, while doing a little bit of research for this episode, I found it on your website and I signed up for it. So I'm looking forward to it. Especially tanks are pretty foreign to me. Like I've done a lot of little tank inspections, like 1,000, 2,000 barrel stuff, but I've only had the chance to go into maybe 1 or 2, 60, 80 foot, 100 foot diameter tanks, and it's pretty neat. And it's something that I think I might want to start pursuing.
Come join our crew on the next 300 footer, and you will put into perspective, what a large above ground storage tank is all about.
Yeah, that'd be pretty neat.
So open invitation for sure.
Awesome. I got that recorded, by the way.
No worries.
Oh, geez. So, what do you think? Should we move on down the list here? Do you want to talk about repairs? Did we do a good enough job inside the tank? Now we found all the damage. Now we got to fix it. I guess what is your guys' involvement in the repairs? Is that at a point where one of those tank manufacturer companies take over, or do you guys kind of oversee the QA/QC aspect of it? What's kind of your roles and involvement there?
So it'll vary on some different projects. What we do at the end of an inspection is we provide a list of the findings, and we provide a list of recommendations for repairs based on those findings and based on the criteria within API 653. A lot of times what we like to do is we like to stay involved with those repair procedures after the fact, because one, it's really easy for the same guys who found those defects and areas of damage to point them out when you're working with those with the repair crews and that kind of thing, and then also provide the post-repair NDE and post-repair reports that go along with that. So, you're doing different things like vac box testing and penetrant and mag particle and that kind of stuff. And, a good inspection program is met with a good repair program. And like I said, having the same crew that's been there from day one working on it's important to keep those guys around, because they've already got a handle on what's going on and what needs to be done.
Yeah,
a lot of times too. Yeah, no, a lot of times too with those repairs, there'll be sometimes some engineering aspects as well regarding repairs, and that goes back to extent of repairs. Is a hydro test going to kick in here and that type of thing? So that's where our group provides, not only a repair plan, as Alex 3 said, but post-repair. And then, as we discussed earlier, most importantly, that turnover documentation, that final report that encompasses everything about that tank. Because I was laughing previously in this conversation. We were talking about reports and how they've evolved. And I'll tell you what, the reports have evolved quite well in the tank industry. As a matter of fact, I was involved in many of the initial tank reports that were developed for owner-operators that a lot of companies and competitors are still, utilizing today, because it is such a comprehensive format and it goes through all the aspects of it. Well, that report was developed. I've developed that report with my people over the past 20 years. That just didn't come together, and that's developed from the old, right from the old, chicken scratchings on a napkin to today, the full blown, digital reports, of course, that have all the 3D laser scanning data in it, et cetera, et cetera. So very comprehensive, including the engineering aspects of it there. So repairs are a big, obviously are a major aspect of bringing a tank out. That's why inspection is so important. That's why cleanliness of the tank is so important, so that you can do a proper inspection, identify what you need to do for repairs, and then complete those repairs as well, to bring your tank back into a fit for service condition.
Yeah, that's some really good points there. And I would agree to the point you made about the in-service inspector following up with the repairs and kind of providing that guidance, and then following up with, weld quality ND and things like that, and then having that all in one report. Like, I must say, tank reports are really all-encompassing. They provide a lot of information and are very detailed. Like, I'm always very impressed when I get a tank report from somebody. It's just, there's so much information there, and it's nice to have that repair follow-up in there, everything that was done, so you don't got to go hunting around for that.
I can't tell you how many times, guys, fewer today, but in the past, I would show up and ask that question that Alex 3 said, do you have any previous history on the tank? Notes, repair, documentation, anything. And, the answer used to be always, for the most part, no, we have nothing. And, many companies didn't even have the original manufacturer's drawing. So you were when that tank came out, the onus was on inspection to be very comprehensive, because you were basically developing the tank history from that day going forward.
Yeah, or there was almost the attitude like that was secretive information, and well, why do you want to know that? We don't need to tell you any of that.
Yeah, you won't find it again.
Yeah, and that that's an interesting point, and almost a comical point as well too. Yeah, where it became secretive. Where why would you want that information? Well, of course we want that information.
Yeah, like, you're the inspector, you're supposed to be able to find this. But I think we've talked about this a couple times in other episodes too. I mean, the more information you give, the better you're going to get back. So, I mean, if you don't give it, your inspector or your ND company or whoever it is, as much information as you can, it really limits on what they can give back to you as a product.
Yeah. And that goes again to what we said previously here, that, agreeing that storage and above ground storage tanks are critical assets. And, I've seen the attitudes change where, they were taken for granted many years ago and not given the attention, but today it's a different story. The major owner operators are giving, full attention to their storage assets.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to see them finally come around, because they are, and I hope this conversation's kind of highlighted how critical and how essential they are to just plant operations and even just holding product all on their own. Because even though they're just, people look at them as big tubs of, just to hold liquid, but they're fairly technical pieces of equipment, and there's so many different layers of engineering and knowledge that has to just go into not only keeping a tank operating properly, but even during the fabrication and the life cycle of it. Like we said, like all the different technologies and different people's knowledge to come in and do all the NDE and settlement assessments and stuff like that. Like it's quite integrated.
Many years ago, I was in a client's office, and I was, of course, discussing storage tanks and the importance of inspection. And the gentleman across the desk from me said, but it's only a storage tank." And his manager, who was in the next office, overheard that and yelled to him, "Until it bursts open." And, that pretty much summed it up right there. It's only a storage tank until you have a problem.
Yeah, that's a good statement there. Like even at the beginning, you talked about how tanks are everywhere, and you see them in movies and stuff like that. Imagine if they weren't there. Like all that product they're storing, whatever's in there, where's that going to be? Just everywhere?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like the old days, like you were saying, it was in wooden oak barrels or whatever.
Yeah.
Like imagine trying to constantly fill that. I guess like the pump jacks or whatever they were using wouldn't pump that much out where you could accommodate that, but still like you'd have to have people there all day filling barrels and rolling them away.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or everybody just goes back to the horse and cart, and we call it.
There we go.
Yeah.
So moving on from that, how about any stories that stand out to you over your career as either something about a failure or just something funny that you've seen out in the field there?
Couple of different things, of course. One of the most, when you're talking above ground storage tanks, you have to mention the 1919 Boston molasses tank incident. And for you gents are giggling, you probably know about it already, but of course, that's a really interesting story, and there's a very good book that was written about it too, detailing everything coming up to that point where that molasses tank ruptures in Boston, in the Boston Harbor, and there's a wave of molasses coming down the street. And that's the reaction to that, is that it's you chuckle about it, but when you read the details and the incompetency that went into the manufacture of that tank, and the project manager on that tank didn't have a clue. He had never built a tank. He had never seen it. He didn't know any aspects of building a tank, yet he was instructed to build that tank. And cheaply, by the way, too. He was under tremendous pressure. So many factors went into that failure. That's a very interesting above ground storage tank story for sure, that people can do some research on and that type of thing. Another, good story on the storage tank side is, of course, the recent, one of the recent incidents that Husky had at their refinery in the U.S. side. And there is some very interesting pictures. They had an explosion. A piece of shrapnel flew from that tower explosion and penetrated the side of a tank, an insulated tank. Well, they documented, they had cameras running, and the way that tank gushed out the side, it's really incredible, the pictures and the video of it. And that's something that really stands out in my mind, is just that image of, that shrapnel penetrating the side of that tank and rupturing it, and then, the product spewing out. Another interesting story on the above ground storage tank is the refinery in Edmonton, the or not the old, but the former Petrocan refinery, where we had someone shoot from the ring road there a high-powered rifle at one of the large above-ground storage tanks. And so they shot at that tank and hit one of the upper courses, one of the lighter upper courses there.
I remember. I remember hearing about that. Actually,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's like an old fable there. Yeah,
exactly. So interestingly enough, I had actually done the inspection on that tank when it came out of service, and we cut the that penetration out, and it made its rounds for a little bit.
Oh, so you got to see the bullet hole, did you?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
I seen the penetration there. The other interesting story that intrigues me too, of course, the very unfortunate incident was the Vegas shootings, and the shooter, intentionally firing at the storage tanks that were in close proximity. Again, I know those tanks in Vegas, and just the fact that was brought to light, that he was intentionally shooting at those tanks. The distance and what he had there, he wasn't able to penetrate or do any, substantial damage. But just that thought process was something that, disappointed me, I guess. Not just that, of course, the loss of life there was incredibly devastating and sad, but as a tank inspector, that's one aspect that I look at there.
Were those propane tanks, or what was in the tanks there?
No, those are remember. Fuel.
It was just fuel tanks?
Jet.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Those are the airport jet fuel tanks.
Yeah, I was
80-foot diameter.
I was going to say, is that for the airport? Because I think that was Mandalay Bay, right? So it wouldn't have been too far from the airport.
Yep, those are right at the airport there. They're 80-footers.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that part of the story, that he tried taking up the tanks as well.
Yeah, he did. And so, yeah, that's an interesting part of that story there as well. And then I also, gents, in tanks, I've got a very large vintage tank photo collection. And you can go on LinkedIn on our website, and we're posting every Tuesday. It's called Tank Tuesday. And we're posting our vintage photos, and those photos include tank explosions and military tanks that have been bombed in the Middle East, some World War II tanks, how they covered them up with camouflage and stuff like that. So some real interesting stuff there with the vintage photos. I've got a huge collection of photos from over my career, as well as having been collecting for the last 30 years too. So I'm glad to be sharing that with everybody now over social media.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always like looking at old vintage industry photos.
Yeah, there's a lot of neat stuff there, and Tank Tuesdays is definitely something that I like the idea. It's right on.
Yeah, me too. That's a cool idea.
Yeah, gents, check it out. We've got a number of good shots on there right now, good photos on there, good vintage pics, and so put a comment down if you like any of those, please, for sure.
No, for sure. Was there anything else you guys wanted to touch on, or do you think we kind of ran the gamut and got through tank inspections and what you guys do?
Yeah, we did it, boys. This was a very good, our pleasure. The conversation and the opportunity to talk to you, gents. I like what you guys are doing. I think it's great. And, I think the potential there is huge too, in terms of what you guys can do with this in the future and that. And anything I can do for you, my resources or whatever, of course, I've got some very close ties with the API committee and that type of thing, and our people and our engineering. They're certainly all at your disposal, for sure.
No, that's much appreciated, and thank you for the kind words. So, thank you very much. Alex and Alex from Ranger Inspections. They provide engineering and consulting, 3D imaging, drone inspections, and actually something we didn't touch on was just you guys do your own safety services as well, correct?
That's correct. Yes, we've been involved in the safety aspect of this industry since day one. Our safety programs have been developed alongside some of the most stringent, like Imperial Oil, and so absolutely.
Awesome. Don't forget to sign up for Think Tank, and that was what are the dates? Was that June?
You got 8th, 9th,
June
and 10th
8th.
here.
Yep, June 8th, 9th, and 10th. And as I said, anybody involved in the storage tank world, it's certainly a must.
Yeah, I wrote it down here and I got the dates. I'm looking forward to that. So for everybody listening, what's your website there, Alex, where people can look you up, contact you, find links to the Think Tank?
The website's www.rangerinspection.com. And that the form for the registration for that conference we've got it set to pop up when you hit the homepage there. And for anyone who's got a pop-up blocker on, you could just hit there's a tab up in the top right that says Think Tanks, and same deal. You go on there and sign up, and registration's free. The conference designed for maximum flexibility. You can pick and choose your sessions and join in as you see fit, and it's nice and easy to fit into everybody's schedule there.
Oh, awesome. We'll include those links to your website and to the registration in the podcast notes, and we'll throw them up on our website as well. Awesome.
So so we got the website, you're on LinkedIn. Is there anywhere else people should look for you for social media wise?
No, I think that those are kind of, gents, unless you have another suggestion for us.
No, my suggestion would be stick to those, because it just gets out of control. Like,
It does.
it gets
For sure.
LinkedIn is actually really good for what we're doing and what you guys are doing. We find the most engagement on that, and it's going to have the best reach for sure. And obviously this podcast. No.
For sure. This podcast is going to make us a couple extra. You know what I mean? Man?
Oh yeah, we hope so. Our listener base is growing every day, and we're seeing more and more engagement, literally by the week with some growth. So we just got to keep at it and keep going. And if we get quality guests like you guys to help expand not only our own knowledge, but knowledge of the listeners, it's providing that value for people and teaching them something while most likely they're sitting at their desk writing reports or coming up with inspection plans anyway. So it's perfect.
No, and thanks again for the consideration, gents. We very much appreciated it, and talking with you guys as well too. You guys are a couple of great guys, and look forward to having a cold one with you somewhere down the road for sure.
No, definitely. It sounds great.
Yeah, definitely look forward to that. Alex Jr., Alex 3, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again, boys. You have a great weekend, okay?
You as well. Nice talking to you.
Take care. Thanks again.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Should we do some sort of sign-off now? Like, thanks a lot for listening. Don't forget to check your settlement.